patreon.com/Jordan Chariton Reports. That's patreon.com/Jordan Chariton Reports. There is a teachers' revolt happening all over this blessed, undemocratic country, and I like it. I think it's a good thing. We've seen it in West Virginia, we've seen it in New Jersey, and today we've seen it in Kentucky and Oklahoma. And these are teachers that have been paid criminal wages, in many cases starvation wages, for decades. And now finally, they're fighting back. And they have been threatened for a long time that if you fight back, you will not keep your jobs. If you fight back, we're going to bring in the replacements. You remember St. Reagan in the 80s, you know, the airline worker strikers. I'm going to fire you and bring in replacements. Well, that's what the teachers have been up against in many, many places. The school districts, the government have basically told them, if you want to strike, if you want to actually fight for a living wage, then you're going to lose your job. And now they are collectively, it seems, it's spreading across the country, saying, no, we're not going to bow down anymore to your threats. We're not going to bow down anymore to intimidation. And we are not going to have to work as teachers by day, and then drive the school bus to make more money, or have to have part-time jobs to make more money, and fundraise to have to just pay for school supplies, which these states are not paying for. These states, like Kentucky, Oklahoma, they're finding plenty of money to give oil companies subsidies, to give corporations massive tax breaks, to give their donors massive tax breaks. They got plenty of money for all that, but they don't have any money to give teachers a living wage. They don't have any money to give teachers enough school supplies, to pay for new textbooks. No money for that. So let me read you just a little bit here on the teacher strike happening today. What will be, will be. This one is from the New York Times. Hold on. Quote, "It really is a wildfire. Teachers go on strike in Oklahoma and Kentucky." So, thousands of teachers in Oklahoma and Kentucky walked off the job Monday morning, shutting down school districts as they protested cuts in pay, benefits, and school funding in a movement that has spread rapidly since igniting in West Virginia earlier this year. In Oklahoma City, thousands of protesting teachers ringed the Capitol, chanting, "No funding, no future." Katrina Ruff, a local teacher, carried a sign that read, "Thanks, West Virginia." Quote, "They gave us the guts to stand up for ourselves." The wave of strikes in Republican-dominated states, mainly organized by ordinary teachers on Facebook, has caught lawmakers and sometimes the teachers' own labor unions flat-footed. And the strikes are occurring in states and districts with important midterm races in November, suggesting that thousands of teachers, with their pent-up rage over years of pay freezes and budget cuts, are set to become a powerful political force this fall. Might I add, teachers are predominantly women. So this goes hand in hand with the record number of women candidates we're seeing running in primaries on the Democratic side. The next red state to join the protest movement could be Arizona, where there is an open Senate seat and where thousands of teachers gathered in Phoenix last week to demand a 20% pay raise and more funding for schools. The growing fervor suggests that labor activism has taken on a new grassroots form. Quote, "Our unions have been weakened so much that a lot of teachers don't have faith in them," said Noah Carvelis, an elementary school music teacher in Tolleson, Arizona, outside of Phoenix, and leader of the movement calling itself #RedForEd, after the red t-shirts protesting teachers are wearing across the country. Mr. Carvelis said that younger teachers have been primed for activism by their anger over the election of President Trump, his appointment of Betsy DeVos as education secretary, and even their own students' participation in anti-gun protests after the school shooting in Parkland, Florida, which, if you recall, that bastion of humanity, Rick Santorum, said on CNN, "Hey, students, fuck you. Stop your protesting. Stop, your rantings for gun control. And just go learn CPR." That's what Rick Santorum, that was the message he had on CNN a week and a half ago. And go figure, CNN welcomed him back a week later for their Sunday morning programming. He was on State of the Union a week after telling students, don't worry about protesting. Don't protest for gun control. Don't protest for your lives. Just learn CPR. Only in America. Only in America. But really, what's really amazing about this is how quickly this is happening. You basically, for years, teachers have been intimidated. I have friends that are teachers, and they were very scared if they strike, they're going to lose their jobs. They're like, oh, we're a dime a dozen. They'll just bring in, substitute teachers who are dying for full-time work. But the teachers are collectively banding together. They're collectively saying, no, 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 no. If we all stand united, not just in West Virginia, but in New Jersey, now today in Oklahoma, in Kentucky, looking to spread it to Arizona. We're hearing other states are rallying together. This is how progressive grassroots activism takes off, when everyone bandies together, because they can't replace all of you. They can't. And it's not exactly a good look when you're, instead of wanting to pay teachers a living wage. I'm about to play for you an interview I did with a former teacher today who was making such low wages she had to leave the job she loves to go for a job she hates. But this movement is also getting out how out of whack the priorities have been in this state. How Kentucky and Oklahoma and West Virginia, they got money for tax cuts for the rich. They got money for tax cuts for their donors, the governor's donors. They got money for fracking and subsidies to oil companies. They just don't have money to pay the most important positions, in my view, the teachers. So I want to play you an interview with a woman I interviewed just about an hour ago. Her name was, let me make sure I have her name here, doing a lot of things, so bear with me. Her name was Anne Beck. Anne Beck is a former Oklahoma teacher, but she was making such starvation wages, she basically had to quit and go to a job she hates. And she is basically behind the scenes helping with a lot of the coordination and activism with the current teacher strikes. But I thought this was interesting because this is a woman who literally loves her job. On her free time now, even though she's not working as a teacher, goes and volunteers to teach computer programming and things like that. But the interview I had with her is really, really telling. So I want to play it for you. Here we go.
I left teaching in 2013, or 2013 was my last year. I was still in schools working as an educational instructional technology coach, and then went to higher ed to teach technology to pre-service teachers, and the higher ed funding in Oklahoma has been slashed just as much as public ed, and lost my job there. And now working for a robotics company that does robotics worldwide, actually. So if I could do it without having to drive all the bus routes or, coach and all those other things like my husband has to do to make a, somewhat of a living, I would do it. But, it's just a teacher, and as a female, those opportunities really aren't really there for female teachers, especially, to get those extra stipends.
Obviously, usually a personal question, but for this story, it's important to know, what were you making? What does your husband make as a teacher?
As a teacher, I was making, because I had a master's, I ended up, I think when I left, making $34,000 with the $500 student council stipend, because I got $500 a year for that, so I think it was like $34,000. And then when I went to the administration side, I automatically got a $10,000 pay raise, and I was making about $46,000 by going into the administration side and getting out of the classroom, which tore me up. It's just, my heart is middle school kids. That's where, but we just can't. With my husband, he makes about $10,000 in stipends and bus duties, so he pulls in about 46 now, but his base pay I think is around 34, 35, but it's the majority of stipends from coaching, and he's also an athletic director and those things that keep him away from the home, but allow us to stay in education, because that's our ministry. It's a family thing.
I was about to say, like, when would you have time to even parent or be with the kids?
They go with us. I mean, the village has raised our children. I mean, I have three. I have an 11-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 6-year-old. And at the time I had two in daycare, I was working part-time for a charter school company, as well as teaching full-time in the classroom as well. I was a part-time virtual teacher, and that's the only way we were able to make it 2012 and 2013, because I got about an extra $10,000 a year from doing teaching part-time on online school. And that's what a lot of our teachers are doing now too, is doing it part-time.
And what I find interesting, I mean, obviously I'm not talking to him, but if you're a teacher, it's not like you work 8 in the morning to 2 and then you're done. There's lesson planning and a lot of other things. I mean, I used to date someone who was a teacher. She was doing things on the weekend. So your husband, and when you were a teacher, you have to do all these things outside of the classroom while also driving the bus route, while also being a teacher. Can you kind of talk about like this low pay and having to work other jobs obviously would be hurting preparation and all the things you need to do for your main job as a teacher?
Absolutely. When I left the classroom, I got a big break because that was kind of my pull towards technology was, I differentiated my teaching style to all my students and, wanted to take this time with great lesson planning and getting every resource for every student that I had, regardless of learning style, and technology at least assisted me in that. And that's kind of was my, forte going to the teachers. We don't have enough time to do this all in one day. And no, I mean, in the summer times, I mean, that's kind of the misconception. I would spend my day teaching. A lot of times the other thing with Oklahoma, I think I lost my planning period the last 2 years, at least about 25%, 25 to 30% of the time without compensation, because we couldn't afford subs when people were gone. So I didn't have my planning time either. And, we would spend, at least myself, with grading, and my husband was a coach, so he didn't have all the grading in about half the day, but, I would work till 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, at least with grading, answering messages, and because my kids did contact me through a Edmodo classroom, where they were able to virtually reach me outside the classroom as well, which gave me more time to not have to meet. But, and especially all the teachers I know, I mean, we spend our summers, they're not off. They're at conferences, they're professionally developing, they're at ed camps, they're, at schools holding their own PLCs and things like that. So, I mean, it's you get up at my husband's getting up at 6:50 to go on a bus route, not coming back from the bus route till 4:15, coaching, staying at athletic events, not coming home till 10 o'clock at night. So, that's pretty much no family dinners anymore. Those kind of things just don't happen.
And, I don't know what your politics are, but in general, obviously Oklahoma, red state, a lot of these states that pay teachers near starvation wages, they have no problem giving subsidies to oil companies. They have no problem giving massive tax breaks to their donors and corporations, but they don't have enough money to pay teachers, what they deserve. What is your thoughts as far as Oklahoma priorities? Because we do know it's a lot of the money, subsidies to oil companies, and the same Republican playbook around the country, which is prioritizing corporations and wealthy donors over public sector workers.
I think that is still the norm. I mean, I think that's why there's so many people up at the Capitol right now. We got a big portion of our pay raise last week, and we still rallied today and closed school today because the educational funding and the amount of money for our support staff isn't there. We are at, I think and I don't quote, you may have to put a little bit more, I think we're at a 3 to 4% GPT. And we wanted to raise that to 7, and our surrounding states are 14, 15. I mean, the tax breaks for our big oil and gas companies are, they're great. And so, there is a lot of funding there that I think we're not tapping. But I think that a lot of us are trying to research that and trying to get to the bottom of that. It's just a lot of it is not put out there for us. I know a hotel tax was going to come through that was going to give us an extra $50 million, and now big corporations, Tom Coburn has came in and said, and now they're not going to fund it with that. There's a lot of it, but again, I think that goes back to the people and through our outlets and what social media, especially our Twitter or Oakland hashtag, has done for us is we're catching them. I mean, it's absurdity, and we're getting that to the public and to the voters. And our biggest thing is we tried to vote a lot of educators in this last term, and we just didn't get it done. And it's very frustrating whenever we hear parents, we hear community members saying, yes, it's not good when you do something, but we're voting the same people back in. I also would like to, if you can research a little bit on Twitter about Cleveland. I think his name is Bobby Cleveland, the representative from actually where I'm working right now, the district I'm working in. What he had to say on national television today is just despicable. I mean, it's just this laugh. I mean, it's like they're just out of touch with reality sometimes. I mean, it's just that, and I think that through these public forums, we're just getting a lot more information and a lot more people being held accountable.
What did he say?
It was like there just wasn't a lot of consistency with what he was talking. I almost feel like that they're not well informed as well either. I feel like there's just a lot of miscommunications going on and a lot of not transparency. I guess is the best word to say. I just think that there has been a lot of transparency that has gone on, and now with the communication and a lot of groups forming together, we're starting to see a lot of those, and I think that will change. But it's we're progressive on one side, and we still have a very Republican, very conservative government that I really would be very surprised to not see a big change this election year. I really would be very surprised to not see at least a lot of seats turn, because I think that we finally got it to that point. Last election we didn't, but I think that this election, we're going to see a lot more change. Because I don't think they've been doing their jobs. I mean, there's a lot of them working for educators, and there's a lot of passionate ones, so I don't want to put that label on a lot of them. We do have a good stronghold that are up there working. They're just a minority, and so I don't want to put that blanket on all of them, because we've got some passionate ones up there, but we need to do our job and vote. I mean, our parents need to vote, our communities need to vote. There's no reason to not be informed anymore. We have too many outlets for every parent, every community member, every retired person to let them know everything that's going on. We have retired teachers that have sat up there for the last 2 years and tweeted out, messaged out everything that they've seen. And we just, as voters, we're responsible too, not just the House. We've got to vote those people in that are going to make those decisions that we need for our kids.
And last question, I don't want to get you in trouble with your current job, but what's it like personally? You're obviously not doing what you love right now. So I stopped it there. Don't know if she would want her comments about her current job out there. So needless to say, she would rather be a teacher. But that was Anne Beck. She is a mother of 3 in Oklahoma. She had to leave teaching in 2013. Unfortunately, she couldn't feed her family. Those were her words. And her husband is still a teacher, but he's only making his teaching salary, I believe, was under $35,000. I wrote it down, actually. Yeah, $34,000. And he drives the bus after teaching, and also is a coach for school sports. So he has basically 3 jobs just to get to $50,000. I don't even think he's making $50,000. I think he's making less than $50,000. So as you see from Anne, who had to leave teaching to be, I think she does something to do with automation or whatever she said she does. I forget what she said. But she can't do the job she loves, the job that, according to her, she was born to do, because you can't make a living off of it. And by the way, the teachers in Oklahoma, the raise that they wanted just went through. What they're striking for now is additional resources so that they don't have to spend all their money out of pocket for school supplies, new textbooks. There's a lot of things needed in education that the state isn't supplying. The state is supplying massive tax breaks for corporations. The state is supplying massive tax breaks for the donors and oil subsidies for subsidies for oil companies, but can't give you new math textbooks that are 20 years old and falling apart. Can't fix the bathrooms in the school. It's not just about the red states. This is what happens when money is everything in a political system. This is what happens when Republicans and neoliberal Democrats are elected into office, because they are not representing the people. They are not thinking about the children and what's best for the children, which are our future. They're thinking about how to stay in power and to pay off their donors because they want to stay in power. They're more interested in staying in power than doing what is right for a society. Because in other countries, they invest a hell of a lot in their school, in their children and schooling. You want to know why? Because it produces better economic results. Finland, for example, is the #1 country in terms of education. They have a shorter school day. They don't have homework. It's very creative. They don't go by a curriculum. And Michael Moore's movie, Where to Invade Next, shows that they have like a five-star meals for the kids, where a chef comes in. And in Michael Moore's movie, he compared it like Finland versus I think it was like a middle school or something in Ohio. And it looked like they just scraped this sloppy Joe off the friggin' floor compared to the gourmet chef-made food in Finland. So, and what really struck me about speaking to her is she has to leave the job she loves, the job she's good at, for a job she hates, just to feed her kids. But her kids are being probably underserved by people like their father, because their father doesn't have time to do lesson planning, which a lot of times happens at home in off hours. He's working from 7 in the morning to 10 at night, as she said, between 3 different jobs, all to make 50 grand. Meanwhile, Rex Tillerson walks away from ExxonMobil with like a $300 million exit package. And Jeff Bezos is the richest man in America. And, states are lobbying to get Amazon's second headquarters built in their state. Meanwhile, Trump giving away the farm. If companies want to bring back plants, they don't have in Wisconsin or elsewhere, you don't have to pay taxes. Nope, no taxes. Just bring back those plants. We'll give you tax breaks here from here to eternity. And hey, no taxes means no money for government programs, no money for school. Trump's massive tax cuts on steroids, well, we're going to get our revenue cut in half. Teachers laid off, teachers at salaries like Anne Beck just described. But hey, that's the price of doing business in the conservatism / neoliberal order. And by the way, this has been happening under Democrats too. They're not talking in Oklahoma or West Virginia or Kentucky like it just happened overnight. It's not only under Trump. This happened under Obama. This happened under Bush. Happened dating back to Clinton. Because the money is funneling from us to the top, as Bernard Sanders says. And it's wrong. It's wrong. And what's great about this now is this collective action is forcing the corporate media to cover it. The corporate media doesn't like to cover things that actually show the plight of working people. They don't like to cover things that actually show oligarchy. But they look pretty corrupt if they're not covering thousands and thousands of teachers across many different states striking. So maybe then they have to focus a little bit more on the fact that in America, teachers are making $34,000 a year that have master's degrees. She had a master's degree, the woman I just spoke with. And she was making, I think she said $34,000 a year. Does that sound normal to you? Yes, if I'm getting out of undergrad, let me go get a master's, which 9 out of 10 times you're going to indebt yourself probably $75,000 to $150,000 in student loan debt, so I could then go make $34,000 to $40,000 a year. Sign me up, please. It's absurd. And I think you're going to see a lot more of this. I think you're going to see it on teachers. I think you're going to start seeing it even in other sectors. Other unions. Hopefully fast food workers. Because we've seen isolated fast food strikes in New York and others, but we haven't seen it all together. We haven't seen Walmart workers striking. We haven't seen Target workers striking. And you want to know why? Because they're living on the edge. They are living at a cliff, and they are deathly afraid to lose their job. Because even with their job, they will have to work 2 or 3 jobs. It comes to mind a woman I interviewed in Alabama last year. She's a Burger King worker, and she basically, I think between rent, electricity costs, going to school, all these things, I mean, she basically every month I think had like an extra $45 in her pocket, and that was a good month. I mean, this is happening all over the country, but it's not just fast food workers, it's our teachers. Many of you who are watching or are going to watch this later. So I don't want to hear about quote unquote democracy under attack, or we're sitting on a shining hill, or anyone can make it in America. No. The American dream is just a dream. Sorry to be Debbie Downer, but it's just a dream. If you want to see more interviews like that, if you want to listen to my podcast, if you want to get my daily video diary, definitely check out my Patreon page. Let me show you here. It's patreon.com/Jordan Chariton Reports. That's patreon.com/Jordan Chariton Reports. I'm doing 2 podcasts a week. One is free.